Hello, everybody. How was that, Wade? Was that a good
Nice radio intro there, Alex.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, everyone on your morning drive. Welcome to Retire with Style. I'm Alex Murguia, and I'm here with my partner, Wade Fowl. How are you today this lovely afternoon, Wade?
I'm doing great. And I'm sure we're going to get some reviews on that.
Oh, yeah. Come on, Wade, what's your radio voice? Do it in I'm feeling great, Alex. Come on, man.
Hey, everyone. Feeling great.
There we go. And so we're here with Andrew Lippert from Simplified Wealth today to do our RISA in action episode. Right, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Hey, thanks for joining, Andrew.
Your voice.
Go on.
I don't have a good radio voice. This brings me back to when I went to a little Reds camp as a kid and did the radio announcing for Marty Brenneman. I just remember them playing that back, and I was like, "Oh."
I don't have a radio voice either. In fact, I don't even know if that's a radio voice. I remember in my school, I went to a parochial school, Jesuit school in Miami, and they had a carnival during spring break all the time, and I was modeling my voice after the people in the rides.
Now I can,
like the Gravitron and stuff, and they go, "Do you want to go faster?" that kind of thing. That's the voice I was going for, Wade.
You should have just let me keep the image in my head of you doing the radio voice instead of the carnival.
That's right. Well, if I did radio voice, I would do my best. WKRP Johnny Fever. There you go. There's your Cincinnati reference.
WKRC,
that fits.
Huh?
Is that WKRC?
WKRP, right?
I'll be honest. You're probably sliding more towards my dad's age group. I didn't really have that.
No.
Alex's cultural references don't go past the 1970s. So.
No, man. Again, reruns, man. Reruns. It's like I Love Lucy. I know them all, but I wasn't alive when the first runs happened. But all right, there you go. I was the latchkey kid. You go home from school, you watch TV for a few hours before your parents get home. That's life didn't get any better than that, kind of thing. But I'll give you a reference here, and let's see if Andrew gets it. Andrew is here with his Cincinnati Reds World Champions cap on and all that kind of stuff. All right. Big Red Machine. Name me the Big Red Machine. Quickly. Don't think about it.
Pete Rose.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
Rose, Dave Concepcion, Cesar Geronimo.
Forget Cesar Geronimo. There's one more. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Joe Morgan.
Okay. There's two more then.
Who do they have? Page. No, that wouldn't have been them.
Do you know Sparky Anderson was the manager?
No,
right?
Yeah, but that's not who we're going for here.
I'm not sending this to any of my friends.
All right, he's Cuban. You're missing the Cuban one. You're missing the Cuban guy.
Wait, you remind me of another, Frank Robinson. He's not Cuban, but he was on that. Who am I thinking? Oh, wait, did I say Concepcion? Shortstop?
No, Perez, last name.
Perez.
Tony Perez.
That's now it's like when Lena and I talk at home, and I'll say something in Spanish, and I'll say it 3 times, and then she'll say it, and I'll be like, "That's what I said, right?" No, I'm a Perez. You got the better accent.
Tony Perez. You said Perez? I didn't even hear you say it the first time. You said that?
No. I'm saying I would have said Tony Perez. That's because Lena.
Yeah.
Different dialects, and I'll be like, "Isn't that what I said?" It'll be like,
"It's probably Antonio Perez." Probably something like that. Actually, there was an article in the New York Times saying in Miami that they consider now my accent to be a dialect.
Well, I guess a dialect, like more to a local region. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of like when because you take Spanish phrases and you just translate them into English. Like when you say, like get down from the car. It's supposed to get out of the car, because in Spanish you say "bájate del carro," which is like,
Right.
Oh, I saw that. That was in the
there's
New York
kind of
Times,
phrases
right?
like that. Yeah. I can see
But
that.
you don't use those types of phrases. It's literal translations of Spanish into English.
I do. I probably
can-
may have been over time assimilated more, but people ask me all the time, like, where you from? And you say the U.S., born here in this country, and then no, where you originally from? Because they detect like an accent as well. But my thing is, I think that's a Miami accent, because everyone speaks like me when I go back home, so I don't necessarily consider it an accent, if you will.
Yeah, none of us have an accent, right? To ourselves, right? I don't have an
Yeah,
accent.
right. Exactly. But
I did
yeah, so it is.
ask once at Fidelity the most random wrong one I would say at the call center. Somebody asked if I was from Philadelphia, and I was like, "This slow draw, Philadelphia." I was like, "I didn't know."
Yeah. So Wade, what do you think? Have we kept everyone on, or have we lost all of our listeners in the first?
Yeah, I think we need
6
to
minutes?
tell Bob for the intro to fast forward 6 minutes if you
Alex.
just want to get.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So the RISA here. No, everyone knows about it. It's good. How did you first hear about it? Or the retirement income style awareness. We'll start from the beginning.
Given the Cliff Notes version, everyone already knows this thing's awesome. we don't even. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
I learned about it actually after reading this book. I was actually down with Lena. Her family's in Colombia for like 3 weeks, and I kind of try and do like just bigger picture, just thinking and slowing down. Get off the computer stuff. So I actually reread all of your book, Wade. Partly as I was going through like creating my workflows in Hubly, because it was you have all these things in your head, and it's just like Hazel, like how did I even remember? So why not
Any
start?
chance?
What's that?
Were you at the beach when you were reading it? Being in Colombia, was it by any chance your light summer beach reading?
I was actually. Hold on, you'll. I'll see if I know where this is. 2 seconds. I have quite the photo, I think, with your book in it even. But yeah, so I read the book, and so in the back, I think in the back of the book they mention it, right? And everyone likes something free. I think it referenced download this or whatever. So I went to the website. To me, it was cool that it was available to retail customers too. I was like, that's neat. Like, putting in the arms of the masses. Like, and so, but I signed up like for the advisor version, and to me, it was kind of a no brainer because of what it can do for you. And it costs like $1,000 out of pocket. And I'm like, I would tell some friends about it who are out on their own now. And I don't know, I feel like it's skipping over dollars to go after pennies when you're like, I don't want to spend that enough. I'm like, dude, if you got, X number, that's spread amongst how many people? What's the incremental cost of that? Like, and it's a really useful. I mean, if I was y'all, I'd jack the price up on everyone but me. But yeah, so that's kind of how I found it and ran into it, and to me, it makes life simpler to kind of just guardrail what you should run through and due diligence on that side of it because otherwise it's just, I don't know. I get overwhelmed by the annuity world, and it's like people. I'm not putting like the CFA stuff on pedestals, but I'm like, man, I get overwhelmed, and I like to hope I'm not like totally a dummy. Like, where do you even start in the annuity world? If you just start with a blank slate, it's just like a volume of everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I like.
So your first exposure to it was on the beach reading Wade's Retirement Planning Handbook.
Yeah, so here
guidebook, right?
Yeah, I think I had
something like that.
I swear I have the picture of it here. I'll show you. It's
it's okay. This is a podcast. No one's gonna care.
Yeah, it is on YouTube.
Don't worry. Save your calories.
Audio
Andrew.
only.
Focus. And when I'm saying that, Wade, huh? All right. So I know something that's near and dear to your heart is the whole fiduciary angle, right? I'd love to get your thoughts on how you view, just in general, how advisors can not just give it lip service, because I think right now it's more of a marketing thing than anything, fiduciary. And not only is it a marketing thing, it's a word that I don't necessarily think resonates with consumers. I mean, it's just a word. And so from that standpoint, though, I'd love your take on your worldview on that and how that dovetails into the RISA, because I do think the RISA, from its agnostic approach, really allows you to. Well, I won't lead you. Just I'll let you fire away.
Yeah, no. I mean, as far as just you mean my opinion on like the fiduciary, I guess the state of that concept existing in our industry.
Yeah, because I think consumers, we have a fair number of consumers, and I think it's interesting for them to hear an unvarnished view of what an advisor thinks of it. An advisor in practice like yourself. What does that word really mean?
So I'll give my view. It's only my view, right? Not Wade's or yours. I say that because it sometimes can sound a little bit, I don't know, jaded, if you will. I've been told, but the reality is, I in my personal experience, I think there's a lot of non-fiduciary behavior that goes on all the time, if I were to put it lightly. And I think that if the average American saw kind of how the food was made in the kitchen with their hard-earned money, probably a lot of times they wouldn't be thrilled, in my opinion. And I'm not. There's degrees of that, right? Like there's you have the idealistic, perfect fiduciary type scenario situation. Then you have the, hey, I'm going to sling these variable whatever's. It's going to give me the biggest pay cut to this grandma who's 85 and has no business buying it, but I don't care. I'm getting paid, right? There's degrees in the middle somewhere there. So I mean, I think what's happened though is that word has, to me, my experience was when I was working at Fidelity in the wealth management role on the employer benefits side, it was around 2013 through 17, so right when DOL was happening. And to me, I saw a shift, and I felt it in the job literally, because when I was hired in that role, they really wanted planners. It seemed like as time went on, DOL came, it kind of became the volume game, right? Because it was almost like we didn't even know how to handle the type situation. It was more reactive instead of proactive, and but then what happened also in the same sense was everyone called themselves fiduciaries now because it was required by law overnight. And to me, that's just kind of a joke because I use the example. My mom's a nurse, my dad's a doc, both great, professions, but they're different. And I don't care if they pass law overnight. They all nurses will be held to the same standard as doctors. That wouldn't occur. You can say whatever you want, and wish hopeful, frilly ideas, but that doesn't make it a reality. And in fact, I think all it did was make it more confusing because now I literally will hear people say, oh, this person's background's this, or they have that experience, or their firm specializes in this. They're a fiduciary. But the thing is, I'm a fiduciary too. We're actually not different at all. And I'm like, no, like if you look at yourself as a human and like your background, it's like, yeah, you have the whatever accredited investment fiduciary designation that took a week to get, and now you can call yourself that. I just think it became another cloak, frankly, for the people who weren't acting that way in the first place. So I think we'd have been better off.
I don't disagree in directionally. Yeah, and go on, Wade.
Well, and maybe to take this in some direction, a lot of the marketing around fiduciary tends to be anti-annuity, and it's really that type of marketing. The marketing is, I'm a fiduciary because I serve your best interests. When you do well, I do well. It's based on accumulation, growing a pot of assets, because if you're charging based on the assets that you manage, yeah, you can make this argument that when you have more assets, I get paid more. And so our incentives are aligned. But then we get to retirement income. And that's where the traditional idea of having the biggest pot of assets available doesn't always align with the concerns people have to have sustainable income in retirement. And so then things like annuities get discredited and so forth. But there are ways to still have that fiduciary title and also be able to offer different retirement styles. And I think that's an interesting experience you've had, how you've developed that. And really starting at Fidelity, we first met, I visited Cincinnati when you were at Fidelity, met you there. Fidelity I always thought was unique as a asset management company that was also quite bullish on using simple income annuities as part of their clients or customers' retirement strategies as well. And so you had that foundation, but how did well, you developed that foundation, and then how did that evolve into where you are today with the firm that you have that is fee only, but is taking a broader perspective about how to build retirement strategies?
Yeah, I guess in a roundabout way, I remember at Fidelity, I would always ask clients, hey, if you could build a firm any way you wanted it, money was no issue or whatever, what would it look like, right? Because Fidelity's kind of Walmart and you can create it somewhat the way you want it to a degree. Um, so, after kind of years of that and then have my kind of philosophy and vision to things, I think that the annuity income piece of an overall retirement plan, just to me, it's kind of a core fundamental. Doesn't mean you're going to jam it down someone's throat who doesn't want it, right? But it's at least something that should be reviewed, assessed. Hey, is this something that might fit in as one of the pieces of the puzzle? Pretty much every time somebody's going through any retirement income planning analysis, and to me it was always simple, just starting with those plain Jane income annuities. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, if you want to buy a little income, here's how you can do it, and this is what the trade-offs will look like. And what are your preferences and differences? And I think what kind of helped me what Fidelity was, I always perform fine on performance metrics and stuff, but my managers would tell you it drove them nuts a bit that I didn't care about the scorecards at all. I never knew what I would have my quarterly reviews. Where are you at on this, Lippert? I don't know. You tell me my batting average, coach. I just want to go up to the plate and try and hit. Like, am I doing good? Or which I think made them more nuts because I was always like top third still somehow. But I say that because I didn't pay attention to those things because I knew if I did, you'd get distracted. Like, Fidelity was a great place to hone the broader planning framework in these niche groups, and I just ignored all those scorecards. And I say that because, like, the planning role I was in, we didn't get any compensation on Philly flows, as they called it. But I didn't care because A, you're supposed to help the client, and B, I knew long term that's how you could kind of learn these things. So I would always sit in on the joint calls with the Philly consultants, making sure I kind of understood how it fit in, how they see it in that little niche arm of the world, if you will. And overall, I think Fidelity did have a really good offering on that front. Like, I saw them turn away multiple clients who wanted to consider bringing in external annuities and doing exchanges. They would, hey, that's better there, just leave it. So that was,
And how would you say the RISA dovetails into your philosophy?
It makes it easy to do it. Is kind of the short answer. You can see that I get a little curious down other avenues at times, right? Like,
yeah.
So it gives you, first of all, a clear framework. You're bowling with bumper lanes. That's easily repeatable for people, and I trust that y'all put in. I love that all the nerdy work y'all do behind the scenes because it makes my life easier to come to the core beliefs I have around these things, and so I trust the empirical outputs of it and whatnot, and it just makes it simple then narrowing down to a few potential considerations of that broad world. And also, to me, showing clients, even ones who don't, I know are pretty sure it's not going to spit out, say, buy an annuity, because it just, like I got one right now, both of them are the total portfolio kind of thing. And I figured that would be it. I've known them for a while, and that's just their kind of personality. Yeah. But they still appreciated going through it. What was interesting was it actually created a really good kind of back and forth discussion on what was some previous misunderstandings between the spouses around their opinions on some money viewpoints. So it kind of evolved outside of even that tool and almost like a behavioral discussion to clarify. So it just makes it easy to streamline that process and make sure you're doing your due diligence in a simple way without recreating the wheel every time. Because prior to RISA and prior to DPL, I was calling, frankly, old friends from Fidelity that worked in the Philly group and asking their opinion on stuff, and that's just not practical to do.
What were the differences? I'm curious of that, because we've gotten this a lot. We've gotten a lot from other advisors saying it's opened up the conversation between spouses, where other times, it when the other spouse is not specifically solicited for information, it's hard to get that. And it has to be beyond just in a meeting with both of them. Let's just, I'll be kind of stereotypical here, but let's say the male spouse, whatever, runs 95% of the meeting. 95% of the meeting is like whatever, right? And then they just look to the female and say, what do you think? and that person just says, whatever, okay, fine, but and then the advisor thinks, hey, I brought them into the meeting, I asked them, and they had the floor. That doesn't really work like that. And so I think a lot of advisors have said that by giving actual time for the other spouse to take it by themselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it does open up conversation. So that's why I'm curious. What was the actual, from a use case standpoint, what were the differences between the spouses, and how did that conversation look like, and how did it end?
Well, the funny thing is their kind of results were similar.
Okay,
what
fine.
the discussion came up is so the one spouse was doing it. We were just going through like kind of the initial part and then going to save it and let them do it on their home, right? But she was going through the first part. Just the way she was answering questions surprised the husband. He thought she felt differently about certain things. So it wasn't like an argument as much as he was like, wait, you feel like that about that? And it just kind of happened about 4 or 5 questions just in a row. And it was kind of, it was cute, but it was funny. It was kind of, wait, hold on, we need to back up here. And so that's when we saved it. And I was like, this isn't bad though. Like, that's good. It sounds like he's learning, a different perspective around the way he thought you felt about this topic X, but it sounds like you don't. Why don't we talk about it? And so it kind of forced him to, it's like when you journal, it forces you to put your ideas on paper and stare at them real hard. So, maybe before you weren't active listening or whatever, somehow you misinterpret it when they're answering quizzes right in front of their spouse and that spouse is paying attention. They're going to kind of sometimes, I don't think is that you? Really? That would be me with my wife. I'd be like, oh, you're calm when no, I'm just teasing. But you kind of know what you would expect your spouse to answer. So that's kind of how it drove that. But the results, the funny thing is, were pretty much very identical. I was like, well, here's the good news. You guys are very similar. You just thought that she
didn't know it. Yeah. Well, that in itself is good. I'm fascinated by this. What did you journal this morning?
This morning I didn't journal.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'm looking for the problem is I have like 1 journal, 2 journal.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Dude, don't ever make fun of my generation again, all right? You got like 3 journal books. Oh my god.
Here's the humor. This is from my Fidelity days of everything I learned. Fixed income. I have so many notes on what was going in the bond market back then every day. And everybody made fun of me. You're never going to read that. It's kind of just fun to read.
All right, Michael Milken. All right, Michael Milken. Let's get back to the interview here. Wade, any questions?
Well, sounds like in that scenario you were having them take the RISA in your presence. Is that a general approach you take? Or?
Yeah, I was initially just kind of making sure they got logged in right and got the questions started, so that when they go home later, it's not
I see.
Create a username. Yeah, you can. So I just wanted them to get the training wheels kind of in the bike going. But they just kept answering them. I was like, we can quit if you guys want, but if you want to keep going. And then it just kind of snowballed into that a little bit. But yeah.
And to your point, even regardless.
Like they both clearly, they cared about each other. That was the cool part. You saw that they were almost the person who misinterpreted or thought the other person in a different way. They were like, why? It was almost like they felt a little bad that they had misinterpreted maybe the way they. And so I was like, that's good. Shows you care. Now look, you're clarifying something. This is healthy. Like, it's better than before when it was a sleeping giant 10 minutes ago, maybe, and a disagreement waiting to happen. Now we're good.
No, self-discovery in and of itself is an intervention. I mean, it just is. So I think that's pretty good.
Honestly, in a way, you guys know that tool. It's like DNA or it's one of those behavioral finance kind of quizzes.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It takes that the Millionaire Next Door kind of vibe.
Yeah, data points.
And they created this thing. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know it too much other than it exists. I can't say I've looked at it under the hood or anything.
I had it, but I felt like I like it. But the problem is I felt like I liked it more than clients cared for it, kind of. And
yeah.
I don't want to over inundate them. And I felt like RISA starts to tiptoe into a little bit of, those feelings and emotions. So that's another plus I would say for RISA, because it was just, one less tool.
I think ultimately what we tried to do, and let me know if we pulled this off. I mean, it's fine. Is look, there's a balance, right, between bringing in the psychological stuff and bringing in the retirement income stuff. And there's a school of thought out there that personal finance is more personal than finance, and yeah, I agree, right? But there's the reality is that you have to be competent, and you just can't be somebody's best friend and that's it. You have to actually know the material, and not just know the material, like know it inside and out. That's what you're getting paid for as well. And so I think the industry, and this is me and I'm a psychologist, for God's sakes, in terms of my training, I think the industry is really going all into this. It's about the relationship, and that's all that matters. And yeah, there is that's 100%. That's a significant variable. If you were to determine who gets responsibility for a successful relationship. But by the same token, I think you have to have your chops like ready to go. And so what I think the RISA does is it really takes the best from retirement income planning, and it takes what I think is really this psychological personality assessment, and it blends them really well into something that you can practically use, as opposed to, okay, I know this guy is a sweetheart of a person, but okay, what do I do with that from a planning standpoint?
Right.
That kind of thing.
It's funny the way you described it, because I remember I was doing a night class at University of Cincinnati, and it was like supposed to be a master's in finance, and it was sitting in like a portfolio statistics class, and there were a couple other Fidelity buddies and a guy from TD Ameritrade and a fifth third guy. We were all admittedly goofing off in the back a little bit, but it was because it didn't teach anything about portfolio statistics. It was a waste of time to be there. And I finally had enough one class, and I was like, "Hey, professor, like, I'm not following the math here. Can you help me understand it?" And he literally said, "It really doesn't matter. I work at Morgan Stanley, and it's all about the relationship." And I was like, "Oh my!" I said, "I can get told that at work. I came here at night to learn the math behind this. Like, I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, but like that's not why I'm here right now." Like, consequently dropped out of that program. But yeah, it's kind of that same sentiment.
Not wrong.
It's just not neither or. That's what drove me nuts when it felt like at times in the industry people want to make it a either or. Like, well, you can either be competent or nice. Like, wait, because at the call center they started kind of trying to hire towards Disney World experience was the way they phrased it, and I was like, that's nice, but you can say thanks and can I help you with anything else all you want, but if you don't have good, strong technicals with people's money, eventually they're going to be annoyed, no matter how nice you are, because this isn't Disney World; it's their retirement. Like, so why do we have to pick? Can't we find nice and competent people? Maybe not.
I don't. Wade, what's your take?
No, it makes sense. I was just wondering if that was the trainer ratio that you were learning about at the time.
The trainer.
There's
No, it's the Sortino. The Sortino.
Oh yeah, I remember all those fun things.
The trainer ratio.
Roy's safety first. I remember one of my friends was nonstop. He had finished the CFA. He's like, they're going to ask about it. They ask every single year.
No, but this is going back to. But again, I mean, what's your take on the RISA in terms of striking that balance between retirement planning competence and leaving room for, like, hey, what's your preference? What's your sort of internal approach, so we can kind of weave them together? Do we pull it off?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I guess if you were trying to, like, quote, add anything to it, you could, but you're probably starting to get beyond what you wanted to design it for, right? The more you slip over towards, like, the behavioral side of anything. Like, I think it's great what it is. I guess I'm selfishly thinking, well, they're close to just combining that data points with it. Might as well just go all the way.
No, I don't want to do. At this point, I mean, there's stuff we can do, but we want to get away from being a financial planning tool, because then that just I think there's other things we can do that are interesting that the industry hasn't done that we'll pursue, as opposed to just growing it into some platform that does planning, and then after planning, it provides model portfolios and this kind of this, blah blah blah. And to me, I think that's part of the problem with the industry. Everyone wants to be this sort of Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all. And
for it, we have vaults for that. I'm like, I have 500 vaults.
So I don't know if that's where we want to go, but again, I'll finish it off. Like, look, I think the RISA strikes a good balance between behavior I don't even call it behavior. I call it psychology. Between psychology and retirement income best practices. I think the industry right now is leaning hard towards how can an advisor become a client's best friend, and I don't know. I think that's great because the relationships do matter, but I think sometimes people lean into that at the expense of just basic competence that you can kind of tell that is lacking when they start talking about, like, you hear it on the FinTwit, on Twitter, these whole advisors that are on Twitter, this or that, and they start talking about the value of storytelling and that kind of stuff. I just
Yeah,
I almost like Schadenfreude, or I don't know what the right word is, but it's where you're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, I think you do want that balance. I would get annoyed sometimes, and I get why. It's a big corporation, but I remember at Fidelity, some of the training, and I needed the process, frankly, because I get distracted. But you had CSS, consultative selling skills training, and I remember telling a buddy of mine once, I'd be fine with it if it was 70% that and 30% we went in and did financial planning training. But it's like, I swear to God, it's 95-5, maybe 99-1. It's like, Can we sprinkle a little technical training in here?
Well, I mean,
the client questions so many times before eventually you have to say, well, here's a way we could solve
I think you have to put yourself in. This is me not knowing, but you're talking about and Andrew's talking about in his previous life, not in his world right now with Simplified Wealth, where he worked with in the Fidelity, like, those offices that you see in strip malls. Schwab, you can make the case. TD used to have them, but they merged now with Schwab. But those are different. Those are different types of advisors, right? Those are most common denominator, just trying to get applications signed and filled out. They're really not, even though they can call people advisors, and I'm sure many people are well-meaning representatives. I don't think. Well, I mean, I say it the other way, right? I think consumers are wrong to confuse them as full-blown financial, holistic wealth managers because they have different mandates from the mothership. And I'll leave it at that.
To me, that's kind of struck because I used to always kind of get annoyed with the industry and shoulder it. Hey, we should fix this, right? And we should. We're all doing. There's people doing good things. But I would have kind of almost always give the general public a free pass. And, the last couple of years, I just more and more I'm like, you know what? No, there is such thing as fault and responsibility. It's not their fault that the industry is all convoluted, but hey, it's your responsibility. So if there are people out here now who are doing it better ways or whatever, you have different options. You need to take a little bit of responsibility and vet out which models fit you. And the example I use is if your advisor gets a W-2 from a Fidelity, Wells Fargo, Schwab, chances are they're going to be soliciting you Fidelity products. That's just common sense. So you shouldn't expect them to be a completely, free, 100% fiduciary consultant. Because if you go to Target to buy something, they'll tell you the best way to solve your problem within Target, but that doesn't mean it's the best way to solve your problem. So it's kind of a silly thought to think, if I go here, they're gonna tell me the best way to solve it. They'll tell you the best way that they can solve it within their structure. But that may or may not be really what you want, but that's up to you kind of thing. And that's how I remember the second client I got, it was because of that. Basically it was tax planning stuff and saved her $30,000 in a 20-minute conversation. And she was kind of like, why didn't the Fidelity guy tell me this? I'm like, because here's the reality. You wanted free, you got free. That guy has 500 people in his book. You think he's sitting here doing this? You're paying for me to do that. I have less clients, and it's just a trade. Up to you.
So Andrew, just real quick, as we begin to wrap this up, how can someone find out more about you and your firm?
Yeah, so you could go to my website. It's simplifiedwealth.us. and there's a little bit of information on there, about who I am, what we're about, the types of clients we work with, that type of thing. And then you can click to schedule a time to chat if you would like to,
Awesome.
speak about your situation.
The other piece, because we're talking about now opening up to multiple solutions, and we can end it with this. How do you use the RISA from a workflow standpoint? How does it guide your planning? Like if someone comes out, and I don't think the RISA is a rubber stamp. If they're time segmentation, they absolutely need a time segmentation strategy. To me, it's that starting point that you begin the analysis. But that's how we use it. I'm curious, you get a RISA result that says, okay, this is the strategy that this person kind of is jiving with. How do you take it from there within the auspice, within the construct of everything else that you said previously about even the Walmart example? Because now you have everything at your disposal.
Yeah, so I mean, it probably just depends on the first thing I guess I say is I just go into it not having an agenda, just having a chat, reviewing kind of the results with them, right? And then if it looks like they have, say, a glaring weak spot in their financial plan where they could boost, with some income, and results kind of point to they'd be open to that concept, that's when I usually set up a three-way call with my contact Joel at DPL, just to kind of go over how their structure works. Because usually what I've found is, whether it's myself, because of my own past biases of bad taste in my mouth, right? Like I used to be one who was not, I wouldn't say never annuity person, but I've always had my guard up real high, right? Because it's just like so many landmines, but DPL and RISA helps with that, right? So, getting them on a call with them, I think is important for them to understand how the DPL structure works differently than other annuity platforms out there. That, hey, I pay them, they're not paying me anything to push some product. It's a platform. You have a ton of different options. We can work with them to model it into your financial plan and write capital if we go that route. So usually it's just kind of giving them that exposure that this strategic partnership's there and available. If they're really of someone where I think it would genuinely help a ton to push a little bit to look at it specifically, like to replace Social Security that's lower than they thought it would be because of whatever reason. Those people, usually I start getting them to run some actual scenarios and hypotheticals, if you will. And then, so we always come back to the RISA, though, to point to. It helps later, I found, also in cases where you're not even going down the route of annuity. Just say somebody who wants that total portfolio, right?
Sure, yeah.
But you look and they have, a bunch of company stock, and then it's kind of like, hey, we can settle on one of these, but if you're going to have all of it in the portfolio, you probably want it a little bit out of company stock.
Yeah. Within the total return, there's better ways to execute it than, putting it all on Enron and letting it ride. I say that. I should say that. I say that because Andrew has a Lehman Brothers shirt. Yeah.
Risk Management 2008.
Yeah. There you go. Wade, anything that we may have missed?
Novelty T-shirt.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a pretty good overview, and thank you. And like touching upon the idea, you are a fee-only advisor, but you're able to incorporate annuities, which traditionally weren't fee-only, but through DPL that is a possibility, and that allows for a wider variety of retirement styles. So if listeners do want to get in touch with you, it was, again, his website, Andrew's website, simplifiedwealth.us. You can learn more about Andrew there, and then he does have a get in touch button at the top of the webpage where you can go to his Calendly and schedule some time to talk. Thank you, Andrew. And also, always like to let our listeners know as well, with the RISA for advisors, we do have the masterclass coming up. It's August 28th, 29th, and 30th, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time each day. The first 2 days do have CE credits. It's education on how the RISA works, the kind of the research behind it and so forth. Then we'll provide that opportunity to be a RISA user and to learn more about marketing on the optional third day of that series. Anyone who's interested can sign up for that on the notes page for today's podcast. So thank you, Andrew, for joining us today, and we're glad you could be part of the show. Thank you always, Alex, as well, for guiding that conversation.
Yes.
And we'll catch everyone next time.